This Fractal case is the Fractal North, except with a different front panel and a lower price, which makes this a really simple review, except for one massive problem, which is that Google says that the name of this case is pronounced
Epic.
But according to the Cambridge Dictionary, it's one of these three instead.
Epoch.
Epoch.
Epic.
So that means the Epic gives us three opportunities to irritate ortho-epically inclined viewers. Fractal's newest case reuses a ton of tooling from the popular North in order to keep costs low. That puts it at $110 MSRP, which is one of the cheaper cases that we've reviewed this year. It's $130 for the RGB variant. The Epoch, if you prefer, front panel increases GPU clearance without making the case any larger than the North that it's based on. The tooling is the same internally. The new design also comes with 3 stock fans versus the Fractal North's 2. So we'll cover the differences in thermal performance in detail as well, including noise testing. The North itself originally launched at $130. It was relatively well received. It went to $140 during the testing period of this case for us, and it is now $154. This price hike is almost definitely due to tariffs, and the Meshify 3 currently goes for $155 at a minimum right now. The Epoch fills a budget slot in Fractal's lineup that really hasn't been updated since the Pop Air and the Focus 2 came out in 2022. Today then, we're reviewing and benchmarking the Fractal this case, and we're also testing how annoyed viewers get as we switch the pronunciation of it. Before that, this video is brought to you by Thermal Grizzly and their new Duronaut thermal paste. Thermal Grizzly claims its Duronaut paste is intended for long-term stability and endurance, focusing on paste longevity in addition to the usual performance focus. Thermal Grizzly's Duronaut paste comes with applicators and spreaders, and ships in numerous tube sizes, aiming to provide a high-end paste for PC builds and daily driven overclocks by enthusiasts. Learn more at the link in the description below. So the build experience for the Fractal Epoch is basically the same as the Fractal North. When the North came out, we liked it overall. We had a couple comments though, and looking back at that review, one of the things that we said was it felt like the North should be $20 to $40 cheaper, if not for the wood panel that's on it. The wood panel is really what set it apart. The case otherwise internally, it's pretty normal. They didn't do a whole lot of special stuff with it. This is the Fractal North without the front panel, and it's $20 to $40 cheaper. So it kind of lands right where we said this case felt like it should be without that panel. The only challenge is that it's $20 to $40 cheaper than the North's new price, which is higher. The Epic, like the North, is fairly basic. Removing the 2-part side panel and sliding the mesh top panel gives good access to the case interior, but there's a clear divide between the Epoch and something like the more expensive Meshify 3, which has a fully removable top and front mounts that completely open up the case. The North's shallow form factor means that GPU clearance is limited to 355 millimeters, which would mash the end of a GPU directly against the front fan mounts. The front of the Epoch has been reworked to push the front fans further into the front panel, hence the listed 372mm GPU clearance. That's what lets them change the clearance without actually changing major tooling in the case. Updating this for the Epoch was worthwhile, although it seems more likely that people are going to try and fit big, expensive GPUs into the North, or more appropriately, the North XL, rather than the planar Epoch. I hope you're leaving your comments right now about the pronunciation. You've got multiple options here to take issue with. The redesign also means that the new case has more clearance for fans and radiators between the power supply shroud and the fan bracket, up from 36mm to 58mm by our measurements, and there's less material overhanging the front drive bracket. The only downside we noticed with the front panel's redesign is that the fan cables need to be managed more carefully to avoid getting in the way. And with the front panel and the filtration, it's easier this time, it's simpler, in that this is it, this is all of it. So the front panel is the filter now, the dust filter. It uses that finer mesh hole spacing material because there's not the wood, and so they've gotten rid of a filter altogether, and it's just the front panel with no additional dust filter. Now, in our testing over the years, we prefer this approach because this is far superior for thermal performance. It is often better for acoustics as well because you can achieve far better noise-normalized results in a like-for-like test without the additional layer of filtration where you get the filter lining up with the holes in the mesh, and then you end up with just no airflow in that area. So this tends to work better as long as the holes are still small enough, they're fine enough that it can capture most of the dust. It needs to replace the purpose of the dust filter. It can't just be gigantic mesh holes like you'd see in the back of a power supply area, for example. So that's the approach they went with here. Our main complaints with the North boiled down to cable management, which was lacking compared to competitors even at that time. That's because the deeper channel at the front of the case is 3 centimeters deep at most, which can lead to the side panel bulging with poor cable management and a lot of cables. This is especially since the side panel doesn't hook into the case along that edge. Now, it's not an insurmountable problem, which is good because the Fractal Epoch is exactly the same in that regard. The cutout for CPU power connectors is also a little on the small side, and the interior of the power supply shroud can get crowded if both drive trays are used. These space issues are a little more forgivable in the North because the North XL exists as an alternative, but we're not aware of plans for an Epoch XL yet. Now, a couple features from the North have been removed. So for example, the Fractal Epoch doesn't have a mesh side panel replacement. It's just got the normal solid panels like this glass one here. So this is gone in the Epoch. It also, as a result, lacks the side mounting fan rails. No surprise, you can't bring air through glass, although certainly a lot of case companies have tried over the years. Today we are looking at the Cooler Master H500P. Okay, we're not. And as a result of that too, the drilled holes for those fans and the rails are gone. So there's a few changes. A few other changes include the lack of a built-in fan hub, but Fractal has handled this by daisy chaining fans in both case variants instead. As we saw in the Meshify 3, Fractal uses Type-C shaped connectors, but they're not actual USB. They are Type-C shaped for the RGB momentum fans. The RGB Epoch uses an adapter that splits out into standard fan and RGB connections. Beyond these, the differences are basically neutral and cosmetic. The front I/O has been rearranged, the illuminated strip from the North is gone, and the 2 audio jacks have been combined into one. The USB ports are the same type and quantity, but the Type-C port is now connected with a flat ribbon cable. The case feet have been redesigned without metal accents. The Epochs might still be more expensive, since each is a unique shape though, and the faux leather pull tab at the back of the case has been replaced with fabric. The captive screw on the half panel at the front of the case still gets wedged though, just like the North. But at this point, we've just had to make peace with that. So thermal testing's up now, including acoustics in the hemi-anechoic chamber. For testing, it's pretty simple. We took the stock case with the normal fans and we tested there, and then we transplanted the RGB variance fans into the stock case so that every single possible variable is the same. It was also a little easier. And then we ran the test again with that version. So we've got those 2 variants tested for the Fractal case. Of the other cases we've tested recently, the direct comparisons for the Epoch are the Corsair FRAME 4000D RS, the Phanteks XT Pro Ultra, the Lian Li Lancool 207, or maybe arguably the 217, and of course Fractal's own North. These are all fairly compact ATX towers, if going for the non-XL one at least, and they tend to be in the $90 to $110, with the Epoch landing at the upper end of that and the North being at the highest of all of them. It's above that. The non-RGB Epoch will be our main point of comparison because, first of all, it's cheaper, and that's the most prominent thing about this case. And secondly, the RGB version could have slightly worse thermal performance. According to the spec sheet, just like with the Meshify 3, the non-RGB fans can generate more noise and move more air at peak speed. And now we have an opportunity to actually test for the differences, although they should be small and the rated RPM is 2200 for both models. We'll start with our noise-normalized test, where we adjust the speed of the stock case fans to hit an overall dBA SPL of 27. As measured in our hemi-anechoic chamber. We built this chamber to allow more accurate testing and normalization by eliminating external noises that may affect day-to-day noise floor. Got a full video showing that build out if you're curious how we built it. With a full system torture workload, CPU temperature in the Epoch was 43 degrees Celsius above ambient for the all-core average, and the Epoch had a 47 degree P-core average as well. The temperatures with the RGB fans were within 1 degree for both measurements for the 2 cases, and Fractal's claim is that the non-RGB fans are a little louder and a little higher CFM, which would mean that our noise normalization reverses or equalizes the performance differences between them. The Epoch outperformed the original North, which came with 2 140mm fans and averaged 46 degrees above ambient, all-core, and 50 degrees P-core. The glass-sided North is more similar to the Epoch, but the mesh option is an advantage for the case, the North, lowering the all-core average to 44 degrees above ambient and 48 over ambient P-core. The Phanteks XT Pro Ultra was even warmer than the glass North, which means the Epoch is also better than the XT Pro Ultra. The Corsair FRAME 4000D RS was within error of the Epoch and functionally the same, which makes sense given the similar layout and fan arrangement. The most serious competition comes from Lian Li's dirt cheap Lancool 207, with its 41 degree average, as well as the more expensive 217, also at 41. These cases are about 45 degrees for the P-cores. Moving to GPU thermals in the same test, the Epoch RGB averaged 45 degrees above ambient, and the regular Epoch averaged 46. Memory temperatures showed a slightly wider delta, with the Epoch RGB at 49 and the Epoch at 51. The regular Epoch was louder at max speed, so it required a greater fan speed reduction to hit our noise-normalized threshold, which explains partially the temperature difference in combination with the plus or minus 1 degree range. The regular Epoch outperformed the Glass North's 48 degree average and tied the Mesh North at 46. The Phanteks XT Pro Ultra came closer to the Epoch here than it did for CPU thermals, although the memory temperature was a weak point for the Phanteks case at 54 degrees over ambient. The Frame 4000D did well with a 45 degree GPU average, while the Lian Li cases again are ahead with the 207 and 217 GPU modes, which we're not showing here because we've got CPU modes shown, showing a similar performance at 42 degrees above ambient on the GPU. Credit to Fractal for still having among the best GPU thermal performance overall, though, with the older Torrent model tying the Flux Pro, but these are much more expensive cases. We're switching to full speed tests now, which means we allow noise to become a variable. The noise level is next to the case name here. At full speed, the non-RGB and RGB cases didn't show much of a difference in thermal performance, but they did in noise. The stock Epoch with non-RGB fans measured 42.2 dBA, while the RGB case measured 39.3. That lines up with Fractal's claims, which have the regular Momentum 12 fan at 31.3 dBA and the Momentum 12 RGB at 28.03 dBA in their testing. Now, these hard numbers are different because, one, they're tested in different environments and methods, and two, we're measuring total system noise, not just the fans, but the difference between them tracks with kind of what we're seeing here. The average GPU temperature with the RGB fans and the Epoch was technically lower at 42.6 degrees average, but not enough to be outside the margin of error, and the average GPU memory temperatures were nearly identical between the RGB and non-RGB variants. The North, with its stock fans, almost kept up, with the mesh-sided result only 1 degree warmer and the glass-sided result at 46 degrees above ambient, although the noise levels were higher than the Epoch. Each of the other competitor cases we mentioned performed better, though, starting with the XT Pro Ultra at 43 degrees, then the Frame 4000D at 42. The Lancool 217 was at 39 to 40 in an ideal configuration, and finally the Lancool 207 was at 38 degrees above ambient and roughly the same noise level as the Epoch. Noise levels have the Epoch about the same as the Montech Flux Pro when at max speed, with the Flux Pro running far cooler with its superior and higher count of fans. The Flux Pro is also, though, $165 to $180 depending on the promo, so it's not the same price class. We're only mentioning it here as a comparison for what basically the best would look like in this testing. Using our standardized set of two 140mm intake fans and one 120mm exhaust fan allows us to make a true head-to-head comparison between the North and the Epoch front panels without stock fans as a variable. In terms of GPU thermals, the Epoch, the mesh-sided North, and the glass-sided North all averaged the same, 46 degrees above ambient. The Epoch's front panel may be cheaper, but it's not really worse for thermals. CPU thermals between the two North variants and the standardized fan tests were also very similar, but the Epoch was about 1 degree cooler, averaging 38 degrees above ambient all-core and 42 on the P-cores alone. The new front panel seems to be slightly more open, but any further performance changes for the Epoch are down to the stock fans. Back to the noise-normalized test, the Epoch's RGB VRM temperature averaged 29 degrees above ambient, and the regular Epoch averaged 30. That's better than either North variant, but the 217 remains the top of the chart at 26. All right, so the Epoch is entering a market where every single dollar counts, and that makes it harder to compete. There's a lot of competition here. Once you are fighting on price, there's a lot of companies that are willing to cut every corner possible to try and save on MSRP. And so rather than fighting at $150 to $180, Fractal is now competing where they can't rely strictly as much on their name to compete. We think $110 is at the upper limit of what Fractal can realistically ask for this model. It's a North without the thing that makes the North what it is, which is the wood. And while the trend-setting wood accents will keep the North selling even at $140 plus or $154 right now, a North without the wood is a reliable but unexciting compact mid-tower, even if the performance is a little better and there's a little more GPU clearance. And Fractal also at this price point has steep competition from Corsair, Phanteks, Lian Li, and others. Corsair's Frame 4000D RS is one that we liked recently. That's got 3 stock fans in it. It's basically the same thing as the Epoch, and as of this writing, it's on sale for $95. We weren't terribly impressed with the Phanteks XT Pro Ultra's thermal performance, but is currently even cheaper at $80 after a rebate on Newegg. The most ruthless competition is from Lian Li, as usual, with its cutthroat prices. It's selling its wood-trimmed Lancool 217 for $120. Now, the North can still compete with that even though it's more expensive because the look is different. The wood application might be better for some people. But the Epoch doesn't have that part. A more direct comparison for the Epoch then might be the $82 compact Lancool 207, which has its own cable management challenges. And even the 207 digital with an integrated LCD is on sale for $105. It's good though that Fractal's at least updating its budget offering. I mean, the more companies that occupy the space, obviously the better for this particular space where it's sub $10 now. And over the years, Fractal has had stuff here like the Pop, it's had the Focus series cases, so it hasn't really refreshed this price class in a while, not in a strong way. By taking existing tooling, this is how most of these companies do it. They'll grab tooling from another case that's already sold and is relatively successful. They'll make some slight modifications. They'll down cost it by cutting things like lights or fans or whatever, and then they'll shift it down in the price. And that's kind of what Fractal's done here, although they've added a fan, they've cut a lot of other expensive features for them. That's what made it $110. But there is not a particularly strong reason other than brand loyalty to buy this case. It's fine. It's okay. It doesn't impress us. The North is a good case, but it's primarily good either because of the front panel or maybe the optional mesh side panel. It's not good because of the interior. The interior is just okay on the North. Now the North's build quality and assembly is excellent, and a lot of that follows here. So they still keep that, or at least the panel quality feels pretty good. The assembly is pretty good, relatively intuitive to take apart and put together. You lose some ease of access features like you find on the Mesh Phi 3, of course. So overall, it's got things going for it. It just doesn't impress us enough where this is like our choice at this price class. There's a lot of competing options at this price class, and really you can kind of choose from them, just some of them that we listed here. I think we gave you like 3 options in the immediate vicinity where you can choose based on at least looks, if not other factors, because they are all pretty fiercely competitive and pricing is plus or minus $20 from the neighbors. So the Epoch is again the North without the fancy features, and that just makes it okay. It's fine. We'd probably buy something else at this price class, a little bit on the, it's definitely at the high side of what they command for what they're offering. But otherwise, that is it for this review. So thanks for watching. As always, subscribe for more. Go to store.gamersnexus.net to help us out directly, like by grabbing one of our PC building anti-static mod mats on the store, or one of our toolkits, or soldering and project mats. And we will see you all next time.